And good evening, everybody. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, jacked up with you today here. And for all of you out there that are starting to, oh my God, the year is ending. I didn't get as much stuff done as I wanted to. I'm busy juggling my side hustle with my job. I don't have enough hours in the day. Well, guess what? This episode is for you. All right. We've got an amazing special guest who's got years, if not decades, of experience helping other people get more out of their day to day. He helps overwhelmed entrepreneurs implement simple systems so they can go from being business operators to business owners and truly experience the financial and the time frame that drew them to entrepreneurship in the first place. And I know all of you out there want to own a business or want to be a full-time investor and entrepreneur, and this is the guy that we're talking about. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about my buddy Mike Abramowitz out there. He's got over 20 years of direct sales experience, training 5,000 plus sales reps for millions in sold. He's also got several best-selling books out there. We'll talk a little about there for you, but we are honored to have him on there. He has a podcast called Better Than Rich Show that you'll want to check out. We'll put the link to that in the description. But what is going on, Mike? How you doing, bud?
Hey, Scott, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the bio and the introduction and happy to be here. And I never like correcting people because people could call me whatever, but the last name is sometimes it's a doozy, but it's Mike Abramowitz. Just so anybody, if you ever do reach out, it's a doozy sometimes, but it was a good attempt. I appreciate that. So I should have prepped you at the beginning, but yeah, Mike Abramowitz, and happy to be here, brother.
My apology on that. I had practicing
No,
earlier and got rolling here. So,
it's all
but
good.
all good, right? You can call me asshole. We'll be even there for you.
All right, deal.
But one of the great things that your power, I really believe, is really helping people get more out of it. Can you kind of dive into kind of your formula, or maybe I'm sure you're talking to people that often feel overwhelmed or not living the lives they want to be. They get into the idea of entrepreneurship and it smacks them in the face that they just created another job or another prison in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah, the challenge is many people, whether you're working in the 9 to 5 or you're trying to start your side hustle, is we sometimes forget exactly what our time is worth. And what I know for me, I was in like kind of this grinder mode in the startup phase, years ago. And the challenge is I would, quote unquote, quit my 9 to 5 just to feel like I'm working 24/7. So it's like this reaction mode settles in, answering our phone all the time, constantly checking DMs or responding to comments or inbox. So it's like, if we don't know exactly what our time is worth, then it's hard to draw boundaries around what we're willing to tolerate or not willing to tolerate. So I always like to start there. It's like, do you know what your target hourly earnings are? Like if you work for a company, they set it for you. You're making 100 grand a year, okay. And they're working 40 hours a week. My dollar per hour is $50 an hour. But if you're an entrepreneur, you don't really know if you are bringing in 300 grand a year. Well, you got to think about, okay, if I'm bringing in 300, how many weeks am I working and how many weeks am I taking off and how many hours am I dedicating each week and how many hours am I not dedicating each week? And that's going to give you a target number. And whatever that number is, 50, 75, 100, 200, 300, 400 or more, that's a great place to start, because then we say, if this is what I believe my time is worth, then I can audit and say, where's my time actually being spent? And if we actually do that audit, oftentimes busy people will see that they're sometimes doing tasks that are below that rate. And not only below the rate, they're draining their energy and their distractions. And then we get to just addicted to the habitual process of going through and doing these distractions, that we don't take a time to like do the audit. So that's what I like to start with. It's like, let's do the audit your time, audit your energy, and then we can see what team and tech solutions could we put into place to buy back that time. And then we can say, okay, we could have the next part of the conversation, but that's a great place to start. That's a great framework to begin with.
I love it, because one of the things I teach in my classes too is like, hey, what's your hour worth? And we get a lot of people that in the real estate side, they come over, they spend all this time and energy fixing a house or flipping a house. When you look back at what their ROT, instead of return on investment, return on time, and they would have made more money working part-time at McDonald's flipping burgers, you know what I mean, versus what they put into into this fix and flip or this deal that they're working through. So it's really important. And I'm a big believer that, hey, if you're find yourself doing $15 an hour in activities, you're going to have a $15 an hour bank account too, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because even if you look at the $15 an hour activities, it's not like, oh my God, I'm going to buy back my $15 an hour time and then go make a sandwich. It's let me buy back my time, all those $15 an hour activities, have somebody else do them, and then reinvest my time into high value activities. So sometimes people that are starting a business or investing, or using your example of like, they're flipping a house, you don't have to do everything. You just want to think differently. What is the highest revenue generating activities? But too many times business owners or people in general are coming from a place of scarcity. If I'm spending money, therefore I'm losing money. What we're really doing is we're spending the dollars to buy back time and then reinvest that time to a higher value activity. That higher value activity literally might be taking your family out for dinner just to give you more energy. It might be doing a 15-minute meditation. It might be going for a walk without your phone. That might be a high value activity. It might be learning or reading or sales calls or trainings or whatever it might be. But we want to kind of do that audit to say, okay, what can I offload? A personal example, and this is not business related. My wife wanted these curtains put up. Now, these curtains, by the time I watched YouTube videos, by the time I figured out exactly measuring it and us doing it, yeah, we could have called it like a project, but like we got a 3-year-old at home, we got one on the way. It's like, that would have taken me more time than I would want to spend. Mounting TVs. We just moved into our house. There was 4 TVs that get mounted. That I could do it, but measuring it, finding the studs, all that, I found a handyman. He charges $75 an hour. That's below my rate. So I was able to get the curtains done, the TVs mounted. I was able to get some of these shelves put up, a pull-up bar put up, all of these tasks done for under $200. And frankly, I feel great about that because that time it's not just the time, but the energetic distraction of me not having to focus on doing that gave me more energy. It gave me more time. I was able to sit and write and journal and reflect, and creativity can exist on the other end of that. So I think it's a different way of viewing time that I want to inspire people to think about, because it wasn't always this way. And we could go into my origin story if you want, but like it wasn't always that way. And that's why I'm so passionate about this.
Well, you also probably save from having a few fights. Honey, that's not straight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you avoid a little bit of that too.
Exactly. Well, but it's important you said about in your superpower, living in your zone too. The more you can spend in your zone where you're creative and getting the most done, the more productive you're going to be, the happier you're going to be. I think I hate to kick this back, but it's almost kind of like the E myth. Entrepreneurs struggle with the 3 different hats that we wear all the time. And we really need to be living in that productive, energetic zone versus the R&D or the research side of things. If you're making $200 an hour, $250 an hour, it makes more sense to hire somebody to do that, because then your time is much more valuable, and you're not an expert at hanging curtains. You could do it, but it doesn't mean you want to do it right with the time.
Correct. And that's, again, it comes to thinking differently. The other piece of this, again, we could go into the origin story, but the other piece of this is, when is the best time to start thinking differently? Sometimes people wait until circumstances arise, and then it's like, all right, now I'll react to the circumstance, a death of a loved one, a sickness of a loved one, some sort of, I lost my job, or, whatever it might be. They wait for the circumstance, and it's like, now I'll change. But JFK said the best time to work on the roof is when the sun is shining. So we need to start thinking differently when things are not in crisis mode, not in a winter storm. We want to start thinking differently when things are pretty good. I could adapt. So especially this being released at the end of the year, going into the new transition, we don't need the calendar to say, oh, new year, new me, but realistically it can be. And this is just an upgraded version of you. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change. We could go in whatever direction you want, but ultimately, Scott, I hired a business coach and a life coach before I proposed to my wife, because I knew I wanted to run a business that was secondary to me being a family man. I wanted to be a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family. And my dad owns a plumbing business. He's 82. He still works 6 days a week. He's incredibly ambitious, but he also missed a lot of basketball games growing up. So it's like, I knew before I got married and went into that next chapter of life, I just wanted a little bit more time freedom. So I hired a coach to help me systemize my direct sales business. And those systems that I put in my direct sales business, I was able to buy back my time. So I had my staff and my systems and everything, but I put that in place. 2020, the crisis hit in COVID. I was on an 18-day road trip with my wife, and we had a great time. Business was producing $100,000 sales weeks. We were crushing it because I put those systems in place. I had an offshore virtual assistant team. I had all these different automation tools put in. I had a staff and layers. It was fantastic. What's the so what? I put those processes in place, not knowing that December 31st, 2020, my son was going to be born, but he was born at 1 pound, 4 ounces. So Scott, we didn't know that we were going to be in the hospital for an extended period of time. But because I put those systems in place, I was able to remove myself from my business for 8.5 months. We were in the NICU with him for 254 days, and my business still produced like a machine over $250,000 in revenue, 6 figures in profits collected without me there. So that's why I want individuals listening to this to say, what is my time worth? And then how can I build this and design a machine that can produce cash flow without me there? Or if I am there, I'm only focusing on the high value activities, because everything else that's below my dollar per hour wage is getting offloaded to team and tech. Again, we could go in whatever direction makes the most sense, but that's why I'm so passionate about this.
I love that. I think I want to go in a little bit about that origin. I understand it. And kudos. If you have my mom was a NICU nurse for 20 years, so I understand the stress of that and everything that goes in along with that. Because I been around somebody who's been involved with that. But I'd love for you, when you were going to hire that coach, because I think there's a lot of folks out there. They're like, hey, I want to do this. I'm bootstrapped. I'm launching this. I'm doing my side hustle. I'm going to be more of an entrepreneur. I'm gonna do it all myself to begin with. And that's the thing I always laugh at folks. I'm like, no. Don't try to do it all yourself, because you're not going to get it all done yourself. What was that process, or what did that, when you sat down with that business expert, what were the things immediately that you highlighted, or maybe the things you highlight immediately with people that need help these days?
So I'll answer the question in 2 parts. One was who I was when I hired him, and I'll answer it to like where I am today.
Sure.
So where I was at that point in time, I didn't have a tremendous amount of pain, whereas like, oh my God, I really got to change. In fact, I had a ton of control issues at that point, whereas like I wanted to do everything. So what that coach really helped me with at that point in time was to let go of control of the things that that somebody else can do, and take control of the things that nobody else can do except me. So I still kept my control issues, but I was controlling high value activities. And that's really what he helped me with. But I wouldn't have been able to have that paradigm shift without somebody else drawing that out. So having a person of influence that can poke out for me for those blind spots that I just didn't see, and also having someone that he wasn't invested in my success. Like I had mentors in the direct sales company I was with, but like they were invested in my success. So the more we sold, the better we did, the more money they made. And how do we do more is by me giving more time. So the solution was give more time, and then I will grind more and we'll sell more. And therefore that's the solution, where he didn't care about that. He cared about me reaching the goals that I wanted, which was time freedom from the business while increasing profits. So I could sustain results, increase profits, reducing my time. So that's why I hired him to help me with that. He had a background in corporate. He helped scale a company in India from 6 million to 30 million. He understood, he had a team of 1,400. So he had that type of knowledge and experience. So he started coaching small business owners on how to corporatize their business. And that was like, okay, that's kind of what I wanted to do. So that's where I was 2016. Fast forward to where we are now, 2023. That coach is now my business partner. So what's actually really funny is, so Andrew Biggs and I partnered up when I got out of the hospital, September 10th, 2021 with our son. I called him. I said, I think people could benefit. I think people could benefit from learning how to do this, even bigger than just you coaching them. Like, we can create a business together. And at that time, my wife had to become a full-time medical mom. So she was working as a corporate recruiter, 75, 80 grand a year. And I was like, I got to replace her income. How do I do that? And that was the birthplace of what we're doing now with Better Than Rich, is helping these overwhelmed entrepreneurs systemize and simplify their business by leveraging AI-informed virtual assistants, team and tech. Like, that's essentially the birthplace. So what I would tell someone now, compared to where I was, is if you are in the grinding mode where you're doing everything, eventually at some point there's going to be consequence. And there's going to be some sort of pain. And when you reach that threshold, that's when I would encourage you to be willing to adapt, be willing to change. So again, coming back to the time audit, I would say, you're right now doing everything. If you're a solopreneur, you're running marketing, you're running sales, you're running fulfillment, you're running HR, you're doing them all. I would break down the hats that you're wearing into these different departments and getting really explicitly clear of each of those roles, and then start asking the questions of who. It's not a who, or it's not a what, it's not a how, it's a who. Who are individuals that can do these things? And what are the tasks that only I can do that no one else can do? Get really, really clear on that. I think that would be very telling. And then I would also think about what are the revenue generating activities for these individuals, and making sure that I'm spending most of my time on the things that produce revenue. So that way I could take the revenue that I'm making, taking a portion of that revenue, and then buy who's that can help me. And frankly, some who's don't even require that much money. You could get low cost, low wage workers. In fact, you could get mentees and interns. If you're providing them experience, you could compensate with experience, with resume boosters, with LinkedIn endorsements, with, just collaboration and your education. You could give bonuses, 100% commissions. There's so many different ways to get creative with finding who's. But what's more important than the who, the actual who, is the actual structure you're bringing the who's in. So I would encourage you to just really think about it in those terms, as far as what Andrew helped me think about it from my lens.
Definitely sounds a little similar, kind of what you talk about, the traction aspect of things.
Yeah, I love traction.
That. I saw the book there. I was like,
yeah,
it's on top there. But it's the big thing is identifying those key steps, or those key not tactics as I say, but key actions that only you can do, and who you can delegate it for to get it done.
Dan Sullivan's Who Not How is another great resource as well. Gap in the Gain, these are great resources.
Yeah, exactly. But I like what you said about doing it before it's a pain. Yes, when it's a pain, you have to do it. And it's always easier when you can implement it, like when the sun is shining, versus dealing with health issues. I've got some friends that have gone through some health issues, and their business has come to a complete standstill because he's in the hospital for 6 months. I've got another one who was working all hard and then trying to do it all himself. And I'm like, you got to hire a VA to do half that stuff, or delegate this. You can afford to do this. Well, I can't afford to. Well, now he's divorced. Now he can't afford to because half the income's gone, So and
that's, I'm really glad you brought that up, because sometimes those unseen consequences, it's having weight on relationships, on someone's health. You want to audit your time, because the time no matter where you are, you're there. So yeah, you're dedicating all this time and energy to the business, but then what's getting neglected? Health and relationships. Those types of things are really important. Your own personal mental health. So under personal health, under relationship health, then you think about what is your legacy, or your calling, or your purpose, or your mission in life. Is that getting neglected too? So we got to understand there's a cost. There is a cost to, okay, I'm going to grind. I'm going to take pride in being a hard worker. That's great. At what cost? So it is important. Again, that's where a little bit of coaching comes into play to support with just that reminder. That's at least what's helpful for me. And this is coming from someone. I have a coach for my health. I have a coach for my business. I have a coach for my money. I'm in a front row dad community. So it's a bunch of dads that I'm surrounded with that are helping me be a better father and a better husband. So I have coaches and mentors all around me in different facets of life because it's a priority. I want to be a well-balanced individual and be able to be present with what's most important. So that's why the time freedom piece is really important too. So I will say to the investors, I bought my first house when I was 20. I had 3 rental properties when I graduated college. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Instead of buying the car, I bought the first house. So this was back in 2006, 2006, 2007, 2008 was when I had these properties. So I was doing really well. I was 22 years old. And before I graduated college, I had 3 rental properties, and I totally get it. I remember when I started up my business right out of college, I drove to one of the houses and I had to repair the lock in the door. I was like, I'm not going to pay a locksmith to do this. I could do this myself. But looking back on that decision, like 22-year-old Mike, if I paid a locksmith $75 to do it, if I think about how much time it took me to drive, the distraction, the energy, all of that, like going to Home Depot and buying the lock and all that stuff, it probably took me 3 hours of distraction energy to save $75 of what a locksmith might have cost or whatever the price would have been. It's just, we do want to kind of weigh some of that stuff out when we make some of these decisions.
That's why I always say that judging what your hour is worth and knowing, okay, what's this going to cost me? What's it going to, cost me hour besides cost wise, but time wise.
And
so
energy,
exactly. That energy, what could I be doing otherwise? I mean, is it more important to go on the date with the wife or the spouse or go change the lock? Well, I guarantee that it's more value going on that date, that dinner versus being interested to go change a lock or do something else with a tenant.
That's a choice. And if the choice, that's the beautiful gift that we have is we make choices. And on the other end of those choices are consequences. Sometimes they're positive consequences and sometimes they're lessons, we'll call them. And those lessons, they start adding up and we want to try to take people's wisdom who learned those lessons, maybe the hard way or avoided some of the pitfalls that happen with that. So, and for those of you listening, I mean, you're in the right path. If you're here, if you're hanging out with Scott, listening to this podcast or reading books and doing that, you're in the right place. That's a great place to start. So kudos to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing too, is thinking back to identifying those pain points. I think that's, everybody knows we all have pain points. Everybody's got it. Things that don't get done that fall by the wayside on a day and day. I'm not a big fan of to-do lists. I'm more of a fan. Okay, big rocks, focus on the 3 revenue streams that you need to focus on each day. Then the little things can either be delegated or it'll get done when they get done. When you're sitting down and talking with entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, what's the process you put them to? I think you've got a quiz or a checklist of some sort that you're putting people through to figure out where their biggest pain points are, where their issues are.
We do have a quiz, and anyone wants to take it, they could go to betterthanrich.com/quiz. And it's a free tool that we just put out to help create awareness again around what type of business owner are you? Are you that grinder that's doing everything that's inside your business? That's cool. Like we've been there. If you're like more of a manager where you have a team and you have like some people to delegate to, but you're still the bottleneck, even in the decision-making process, even though there's a team, are you a visionary where you see like the future of where you're at, but you don't know necessarily what to dedicate your focus to? Great. We want to give you some resources and PDFs. So on the other end of the quiz, we have like videos and PDFs and workbooks, and depending on where you're at, which is really helpful. What I would recommend is, once an individual does their time audit and figures out their dollar per hour wage, I would go through a task evaluation. So the evaluation might start with like, what are all my tasks that I do under the umbrella of communication, like communication related tasks, email, inbox, scheduling appointments, answering phone calls, managing mailings, client follow-ups. Then I would go through marketing tasks, website updates, designing flyers, organizing ad campaigns. Then I would go to social media tasks, social media management or content creation, scheduling content, engagement, audience building, analytics, hashtag, research, like all of this. Then I would go to lead generation tasks like lead sourcing and qualifying and nurturing and any cold calling that's happening or event planning. Then I would go to any type of listings or transactions that might be taking place, like data entry or CRM or client database management, any type of research and reporting, like market or client research, any general admin tasks like planning events, travel arrangements, even grocery shopping for crying out loud. And then like any client relationship tasks like client nurturing or gift purchasing or feedback generate, any of that. Like these are all tasks that I just listed off. You go back and listen to this. These will, this will all be populated in that email and whatnot, and on the other end of that quiz. But ultimately, you just do an audit and say, cool, I bet there is a who that could do all of those things that are underneath your target dollar per hour. So then once you have the awareness, start getting those offloaded, start delegating them. And then what do you do with your freed up time? Well, can you spend time on doing like in-depth market analysis or strategic networking, creating partnerships? If you're in business, let's say if you're, let's say if you're in real estate, you're an investor and you want to find more deals that you can buy. You want to find strategic partners. Why would they want to do a partnership with you versus the other people? Why would they want to give you access to their deal? We got to foster these relationships. How do you invest in those relationships? How do you get FaceTime with these people? If you're a real estate agent, shoot, I want to have a referral partner with an attorney that deals with the D's, the deaths and the divorce and the disasters. So that way, every time they have one that comes across their desk that, hey, my family member just passed away and I inherited their house. What do I do? Oh, you got to sell it. Cool. Here's my contact for someone that could help you get that listed. How can I have partners with like attorneys and advisors and those types of people? We got to be strategic with the time, continuous skill development or visionary planning, personal development and well-being, like public speaking, influencing. Maybe you want to be guesting on podcasts or something. Like there's so many things that you can do with that extra time that could be higher value activities. So I just wanted to capture that so somebody can go through and just say, these are all the tasks that are probably below my target dollar per hour. And these are some activities that I could do that are high value. If I could get these offloaded and spend more of my time up here, what might that be able to do over the next 6 to 12 months? That's really the question. And what's nice about the things that we can offload, many of them are under $25 an hour. I mean, for comparison, you might be able to buy back that time of 20 hours a week, 80 hours a month. Shoot, what might that do for your life or your business if you had all these tasks offloaded and then you were able to spend that time 80 hours a month on high value activities? It could be very exciting.
It can be very exciting, very profitable, because now you can put your time and effort into doing these things into somebody can do it for you. And then you're now got 80 hours to focus on the more productive things. They get more stuff done. How important is you mentioned networking, but how important it would be, like you said, coach, you hired a coach, but also like masterminds and sitting down with like-minded individuals and bouncing questions. How do you solve this? How do you fix this? Or what are you using to fill this gap in?
Well, it depends on someone's learning style. I personally enjoy that because I like the accessibility. So I have several communities I'm a part of that have accessibility, and it's also continuity where I can continue the same conversation with the same person versus like bouncing around, but the accessibility to be able to like have on-demand access to different levels of accountability. There's the accountability of expert accountability that I really like, people that are ahead of me. I like the accountability of peer accountability, those that are running alongside of me. And I also like the mentee accountability where I'm teaching something to somebody that's just starting out, because then it's forcing me to make sure I have actually integrated or learned some of those things. So having the 3 layers of accountability has always been helpful for me over the last 20 years of being in business. So I love that. The only thing is that takes time. So we need to make sure it's a priority for someone so they actually take advantage of the accessibility so they can get the benefits. So that's what I would say. But I take full advantage. If I pay attention. So like I've been invited to like free groups and I'm like, I that's YouTube for me. Like I just don't want to join something. But when I joined some of the groups, when we got out of the hospital, September 2021, as I mentioned, I invested over, it was approximately 30 grand that I invested into different groups that I wanted to become a more of an expert in and learn from experts and cut down that learning curve dramatically. So that was important for me. And because I invested that much, I was committed. I was 30 grand committed to create six figures in the next 12 months. So I started, my own coaching company during that time frame. I partnered with Better Than Rich, and I'm really fired up to say that from that moment until now, so September 2021 until this right now, November 20, I haven't done November's expenses, but it was $777,000 in revenue that's been created through October and in 2 years. And I'm fired up about that
Yeah.
because it came from this desperation of, how am I going to replace 75 grand a year of my wife's income? Let's find out, let's figure out what we can do. And it's now provided dozens of jobs to other people, hundreds of students and clients that we've been able to serve, all from a place of curiosity of like, how might I be able to figure out what my genius is and how can I add value to the marketplace?
A question for you that pops in my mind because I'm thinking of somebody. What do you do with those that have the big mind block about being able to let go of something? I'm sure you've dealt with so many folks like I got to do it all myself. The inner control freaks that we all are. There are people, folks like I just can't let that go, and it's the point is like you got to let that go, or you're not going to get where you want to go long term, right?
So again, I hate that answer, but it depends. Everything in business, it depends. So if you want to get more granular of like, what is it that they need to let go of, we can actually go into the specifics. But if someone says I need to let go of something, it's what are we replacing it with? So for example, if someone says I got to quit smoking, those people rarely ever quit smoking. So it's I'm letting go of cigarettes versus I'm adding in healthy lifestyle. So I'm letting go of something to make room for something else. So we need to just get really clear of what are we more so making room for, more than what are we letting go of. So that's again, we could, without knowing all the specifics, that's immediately where my mind would go is what do we need to make more room for?
That makes sense. Well, let's take it down a little more granular. Let's say it's staff you've had working for you for a while and you want to transition to doing something else than what they've done before. And
Okay.
they identify themselves as being the person that handles A, B, and C. To give that up. You know what I mean?
So think about it this way. What I would say to that person is, what message does it send to a staff that says, I hired you to do this blank task, but I'm going to do it? What is the message that sends that I hired you to do it, but you can't do it as good as me, so I'm going to do it instead? The message might be said, well, they might say, I don't know if he trusts me. I don't know if he believes in me. I don't know if he thinks I'm competent. Why do I even work here if he doesn't want me to do the work? Am I being undervalued? Am I underappreciated? Now, this might not be the truth, but it might create an environment where that message is being indirectly communicated by these actions. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, what message does it send when the owner says, I hired you to do these tasks. You came to me to ask me to do them. Since I hired you, I'd like for you to figure it out and then present to me. I want you to present to me 3 possible solutions to your one problem, and then pick out the one best viable option out of those 3. So one problem, 3 possible solutions, and pick your favorite of those 3. That's directly from Buyback Your Time. And now I'm empowering them to do some sort of thinking, and then they present it to me, and then I'll have a conversation with them. More than likely, that conversation would probably be, cool, I think that's a great answer. Nice work. And now it's an environment of empowerment versus an environment of potentially decreasing value for these individuals. The human capital might be going down. I want to raise that human capital as much as possible. I don't want to be the smartest person on my team. I pride myself in that. People ask me, it's like, what technology do you use? What's your new AI? I'm like, I got to ask the individual on our team that's responsible for that. I don't have the answer there, and I don't want to have the answer there. I could find it out for you, but I don't want to waste my genius with something like that.
Well, that brings me to the next question I've had. You must have a little ESP there. How important is your team's utilizing AI to get more things done or be more efficient?
Oh, it's everything. I mean, we have a 30 something person team, man, and they're using AI. We pride ourselves like that. We've created that identity. We say we have an AI informed team. So we have an AI informed team, and we have a service where someone can buy our team essentially and use our team for their services. Everything from video editing, podcast production, graphic design and imaging, social media marketing, lead generation, inbox management. It's wild. Like I'll tell you, Scott, here's how amazing AI is, and how our team uses it. This second in time right now, while I'm having a conversation with you, I have approximately 12 different individuals acting as me on all different platforms in my tone. So the benefit of this is I can be in multiple places all at the same time. It's my tone, it's my AI, it's just not the human form of me. So it's another human using my tone and AI pushing and submit. So it's as me, it's for me, it's just not by me. So you could take that in whatever direction you want to go, and we could go down whatever rabbit hole you want to go on this, but it is critical. It is here. It is not that hard. But it is, I mean, the technology that's available to us right now is really, really critical for someone to stay competitive in the marketplace. If there's a great example that Simon Sinek talks about in Start With Why, and a little bell curve. And he says there's the innovators is like that first few percent, and then there's the early adopters, and then there's the early majority. That's kind of where we're at in this AI movement right now. Then there's this late majority, and then there's those laggards. And that late majority and those laggards, oftentimes, if they're in business, they experience consequence. There's pain. So those individuals, they're the ones that during COVID, they got screwed. Those are the ones that during COVID, they didn't adapt, they died. That's why their business shut down. That's why they struggled. And they're pointing fingers at, oh, it's COVID and this and that. Because for every one of those people, the innovators, the early adopters, the majority, how did they thrive during crisis is because they were willing to adapt. And we must adapt. AI is here. We got to stay competitive, and everyone in your organization must be informed with what are the capabilities. And with ChatGPT specific, it's not about the tool. The tool is easy. It's the questions and the prompts that we're asking to it. How do you have a conversation to draw out items that you want to draw out? It could create a content calendar. It could create, responses to emails on your behalf. I mean, the items are pretty endless of what's possible. It's almost like if you ask, you shall receive, when it comes to AI, but I could keep riffing on it, but yeah, that's my passionate rant.
That's the thing that we've been playing around with the last month or two is using ChatGPT and Baird to create that full year of content creation and how to get it out on a weekly. I mean, there's things you do daily, things you do weekly, things you do monthly as well, and trying to systematize that so that it's not all having to come from between the 6 inches between your 2 years. You know what I mean? Leveraging that, because that's usually the biggest challenge I get from our students when we talk about, hey, you got to create some content, get stuff out there. It's literally like sitting down to write a book on an empty screen and not knowing what to type. Well, ask a couple questions and you'll have more than you ever wanted to start sharing in creation. You know what I mean?
For sure. 100%. It's a great primer when it comes to writing content. It's also really good for, my goodness. Here, I'll share this little nugget of wisdom, and we can go in whatever direction. We're using it for lead generation for our business. Okay. So we have clients. I'll use one of our clients as an example because he's more in the real estate investor space. I think it's relevant. So his name is Matt. He has his team of virtual assistants researching mobile home park owners. So they're researching mobile home park owners. That's his specialty. They do all the research, find potential owners. Then his team will take that list, and then they'll do a multi-part campaign. First, they'll email them. Then they'll find as many as they can on Facebook and Facebook and LinkedIn, send them cold messages, send them a text message. And then if they don't get a response, then it's a phone call. So we have that campaign, send them a call, ideally all to ask them a couple of qualifying questions like, Are you in a position to maybe possibly sell your mobile home park? What are, what's the vacancy, whatever it might be? They ask the qualifiers. And if they're qualified, book a call with Matt. So that whole process in the front part is done with AI and also a virtual assistant team. So the AI is making sure the templates are right, how to find these people, scraping tools on different websites. There's so many different resources that are out there to get this list organized, reach out to these people and try to get them on Matt's, try to get qualified candidates on his calendar. 90 days. The first 90 days we did this, he got his first mobile home park deal. And obviously, paid for 10 years of our service. But now we're at the point where we're pairing that model with finding investors, people who want to put their money to work. So it's how do we find capital investors and using OPM, other people's money to pair with these deals. So Matt is now creating his own agency essentially as a middleman, where he can be creating his own fund to raise capital and also find deals and be that person in the middle, leveraging AI and a team of virtual assistants as an example, using GPT and AI for finding the contacts, reaching out to the contacts, copy and pasting in Matt's tone on social media, doing what we call an organic 3-2-1, 3 likes, 2 comments, and 1 authentic message. So it feels very human. It doesn't feel like a bot. Right. So it's AI informed team is really what he's using. So it's wild. That's just an example for lead gen purposes for someone in the investment space.
Well, but that's so critical, those, because all those activities, most people are trying to do it all themselves. And the efficiency of that is not, there's no efficiency trying to do all that stuff yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you look back at the 90 days prior to what Matt did, it's probably a whole lot of nothing, compared to where it's exponentially where it's at today, closing on stuff and then raising capital and going from there.
Yeah, it is. And again, we have 65 clients that is like our test geniuses, and there's many examples that we could bring in from them. But the most important thing for anybody that listening to this right now, you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars or hundreds of hours figuring out on your own. By joining a community of individuals, whether that's your community, Scott, or other communities that you can get exposed to. Conversations around this are happening all around you. So I would invite you to, you could join, I'm sure, Scott, you have a community of tons of people who are having these conversations. I know we do. This is not going anywhere. You got to just adapt and jump into the convo and just see who's most aligned with where you're at on the journey, and seeing who can help you get from where you are to where you want to be, figure out what that gap is, and then build that bridge with those that can help you. That would be my counsel.
You mentioned something. A lot of folks, when they are exposed to this, it's an overwhelmingly like drinking from a fire hydrant at the beginning. That can often be a scared fact, like I can't implement this all. What time frame would you tell folks to realistically give themselves to implement a lot of these things, whether it's AI or the systemization things? What's that time frame? Are we talking 30 days, 90 days? I mean, it varies a little bit, but on average, what do you talk with your clients about as far as the time frame to get stuff implemented?
Well, our process, we've really knocked this down to 45 minutes. So it's because we already have systems in place. So if somebody doesn't have any SOPs, there's no processes, there's no playbooks, there's no systems, and they're trying to do it on their own, I mean, you got to watch the YouTube videos and really go through some of it. I mean, I would say 30 days, you could probably start seeing some really solid gains with YouTube University at your side. But for us, I mean, shoot, you hop on a 45-minute Zoom. We have an account manager, a technology expert, and we have an onboarding manager that you would hop on with those 3 people, 45 minutes, answer the questions, an intake form that you fill out before the Zoom. And then we go through that intake form and say, all right, what are the things that we want to offload now, like right away? What are some recurring tasks, inbox management, calendar management, social media, lead gen, whatever the answers are? It's like, cool, let's get access to those things. Let's get your tone. We'll put it into GPT. Cool. Does that look good? Awesome. And great. We're going to get to work on this. And boom, set it, forget it. We'll get to work on whatever it is that needs to get done. And then when they want to assign their next tasks, we either go back and forth on Slack or we hop on a Zoom again and do the same process. So for every batch of tasks that someone wants done, we've pretty much got it down to a science where 45 minutes or so, we can start taking over everything because we already have a lot of SOPs in place.
Nice. Now, what's an ideal client for you? Is there a revenue amount, a season amount? What's kind of your ideal client with the
Yeah,
65 that you talked about?
if someone's a thought leader, like they see themselves as a thought leader, they see themselves as a very busy thought leader, and they just want to get some time back. Most of our clients are ranging anywhere as low as, like, I would say 80 grand a year to, maybe 200 grand a year that their take home is. And then we have a couple of the higher end where they're running, multi 7-figure businesses, and they're using our services for their team. So like that's our target ideal client would be that, because then they have a team of individuals using our services, not just one person using the service. So there's like the solopreneur, and then there's like a business owner who has a staff and a team that they're all using these AI informed, because that ideally for someone who is running a business and you're paying someone $50 an hour to do $15 an hour work or $20 an hour work, you really want to rethink and reimagine what that setup looks like. So we can help them not only win back time, but also increase some profits. So
What's your favorite tool to have your AI start speaking in your tone? You've probably got a tool or two.
Well, GPT is for sure. Sure. Chat GPT 4, their tone analyzer, as long as you're using the right prompt, I mean, it is spot on. Just having it analyze the tone is fantastic. There's tons out there, but that's the one we use, Chat GPT 4.
Yeah, that's what I like to use. I didn't know if there was a different one out there.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Now, talk about the podcast a little bit. What are you seeing in the podcast and hoping to accomplish more with that?
Right now, we have about 150 episodes or so.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. It's interesting because it's called Better Than Rich show, because on the other end of time freedom is impact.
Yep.
And so our business model, like our business pillars, is to help individuals, these thought leaders, these business owners, these entrepreneurs, help them buy back that time so they could reinvest that time to what matters most to them. And a lot of these individuals, what matters most to them is fulfillment, is joy, is making a positive difference in the world we live in. And if we think about what does it mean to be rich? Well, you could define that as however you want: wealth, money, time, whatever, like 3x freedom, time, location, and money freedom. So what's better than time, money, and location freedom? That's where it's like being present, being abundant, being fulfilled. So a lot of what we try to do on the show is to capture either how to get your business and life to a place where you have the time freedom to experience what it means to be better than rich, and examples of those who already are on the other end of that time or that 3x freedom, and giving examples of what's at the end of the road. So we just continue to capture stories of these people, giving examples, lots of workshops and tools to just really help the listener level up their business so they can level up their lives to spend that time what matters most to them. So
it's a great podcast. I've been binging some of the episodes recently and absolutely really enjoying it. So
great. We've had some great guests, man.
Oh yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun. So, and you'll be on the show coming up soon. So I'm excited
looking forward to
the
that.
script.
Yeah. Just a little bit there, but we could spend all day here picking brains and going back and forth, but what's the best way for our audience to reach out to you, Mike? Is it the betterthanrich.com/quiz for them to start that process kind of and get the ball rolling for you?
I would say so. If they want to go to betterthanrich.com/free call, we someone from my team, it might be me, it might be someone from our team, but betterthanrich.com/free call. We have a non-sales call. It's a game plan call that we call it. And you just answer a couple of questions. We'll hop on, open book, no sales, 15 minutes, ask us anything. You want to learn something about ChatGPT. You want to know what the best prompts are. You want to know how we could do, whatever to help you. We'll just help you for 15 minutes. And at the end, if we feel like you actually could be qualified to use our services, or if you feel like you'd like to go through the sales process, let's be frank, what it is, then we would set up a longer discovery sales type of call with you, and dig a little bit deeper to see if we can actually help you with your business. Again, we have two pillars. We have the AI informed virtual assistants. We'll give you a monthly subscription of getting things done for you with an AI informed team. And we also have our operator to owner curriculum, and that's our coaching, where we have community coaching, on-demand resources, weekly live coaching sessions, private coaching sessions, where it's almost more of like a done with you type of feel for someone who's just like needs to level up their systems and some of those playbooks. We'll educate them and have a curriculum for them.
Awesome. Good stuff there. We'll put those links in the description there. Got to ask one final question. You've got so many books behind you. What's your number one book that you like to recommend out to people?
It's the one right above my head is Dan Martell's Buyback Your Time, because that is the playbook that we really have modeled. And we took that model and created a business around it to help people buy back their time. So we actually have like actual solutions and SOPs in place to help put the book into practice, because Dan Martell is amazing, but to get Dan Martell and his team to do this stuff, he runs a SaaS company. It's not like he's even offering a solution to you. So we've actually taken that and solved this problem in the marketplace for people.
Definitely good stuff. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the Note Closure Show and sharing your insight and valuable experience with our audience out there today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Scott.
No problem. All right, guys, gals, you heard it here. Go out, take that free quiz, find out how you can solve your biggest issues of time and management and getting more out of your day or more out of your business, more out of your life, because we all know that is definitely what's better than rich, is actually having a life that you truly love. Doesn't matter what the number is. It's being able to do what you want when you want to do it without having to be stressed out to get those things done. So go out, take some action, everybody, and we'll see you at the top.